Beautiful. So this is a great introduction to these foundations. And the third concept you wanted to talk about is magic. So what is magic from your perspective?
Well, this is a very difficult concept. I cannot give such a clear and detailed answer to this one, I believe, than the other ones, because magic can be viewed from all sorts of different angles. I mean, it is, by most even scholars, believe that modern, well, not modern magical tradition, but the magical tradition goes back as far as the Sumerian religions, which is very far back, and even in things like Hinduism and Zoroastrianism, there can be seen some magical things. I mean, this is very hard to talk about. I cannot really find even the right words to describe this, but basically magic. Well, also you have to define different types of magic, because they're very different from each other. Obviously, magic is used to influence things. That is kind of the point of magic, as in the context that I'm talking about it in. But at least as I talked about before, Agrippa, who is a 15th century, he was a contemporary of Paracelsus, who is probably more well known. He's basically considered, Paracelsus is basically considered as the founder of modern medicine. So, but if you don't know who Agrippa is, his full name is Henry Cornelius Agrippa of Nettesheim. He was a German occultist in the 1500s, and he wrote this book. Sorry, let me take a drink here. He was a German occultist who, in the 1500s, wrote a book called the Three Books of Occult Philosophy, right? And this is basically the foundation book for modern occultism, or kind of, some people call it the guidebook of modern magic and so forth. But in this book, he basically outlines three main how would you say it, varieties of magic. First is natural magic, then is celestial magic, and then is divine magic. Or, well, divine magic might be bringing up kind of weird ideas in people's heads nowadays, but it basically means the magic that is beyond just the constellations and the planets. But basically, if you have to define magic basically according to these three categories of magic. Well, I would say so. I would like to do that. Well, okay, I can talk about, for example, how I would define the first category, which is natural magic. And Agrippa also draws a lot from the 1400s natural magician and philosopher Pliny the Elder, I think is his full name, that you can search him up as. And basically the idea there is, well, it is basically the same idea what the Greeks called sympatheia. It is basically correspondence between certain things. And it is like that God made everything in his image, and therefore things have that inferior things always have a correspondency to their superior things. So by combining certain inferior things and performing some kind of magical ritual to them or some other way, you can draw down the virtues of the superior thing to earth. And there's actually a couple of I have my notes here, my notebook, and I have actually wrote down some of the things from that book of Agrippa that I could read that are corresponding to this thing that I'm talking about, if you want to go there, but it's up to you.
We can go in any direction you want, brother, if you have something you want to cover. Otherwise, I have additional questions if there's something you wanted to go into, though.
Okay. Well, these are very condensed and heavy type of information, the things that Agrippa writes about, and these usually aren't recommended to beginners. I'm not saying I'm some kind of expert, but still. So, let me see. Okay, I could read a short one. This I have in my notes labeled as Natural Magic, Correspondency of Creation, God's Image. I could read this. This is from the 3 Books of Occult Philosophy by Agrippa. This is the Llewellyn Publications 2018, I think, annotated and edited by Donald Tyson. By these examples, you see how by some certain natural and artificial preparations, we are in a capacity to receive certain celestial gifts from above. For stones and metals have a correspondency with herbs, herbs with animals, animals with the heavens, and heavens with intelligences, and those with divine properties and attributes, and with God himself, after whose image and likeness all things are created. So basically, TLDR, all things correspond to some capacity with each other, and God created all after his image and likeness. So through inferior things, you can move up to gain the virtues of superior things, and therefore, by this logic that is laid out on this in this text, you can eventually reach God. That is basically the sum of natural magic.
So before we get into open questions and response from the audience, which we want to do pretty soon, just want to see if you have a few comments from you on a few other topics. So do you have, you've been giving really good introductory descriptions. Can you give people a description of Kabbalah, just as you understand what that is?
Kabbalah, your voice is kind of breaking up. Did you, introductory in Kabbalah, is that what you said?
Right, am I still breaking up?
Not as bad as before.
Okay. So I was just saying you've been giving good introductions to topics, and I was wondering if you could provide one for the concept of Kabbalah.
Sure. So just a glossary explanation. I'm trying to not get too deep into these subjects, because if I give very specifics, I'm going to be talking for 2 hours. So, okay. A quick glossary on Kabbalah. So Kabbalah is basically, it is a originally a Jewish esoteric method. Esoteric in the way that well, okay, so in the old Jewish tradition, Kabbalah was only meant to be taught to people who were who were over 30 years old. In that way, esoteric. And it was also a discipline and school of thought in Jewish mysticism. The definition of Kabbalah varies according to the tradition and aims of those following it. So there's many schools, basically. Well, no, I don't know if there's that many schools, but there are different schools. And from its religious origin as an integral part of Judaism to its latter adaptations in Western esotericism. So there's adaptations of it later into Western esotericism, and those spawned Christian Kabbalah and Hermetic Kabbalah, which the Hermetic version is spelled differently. It's spelled with a Q instead of a K, and it only has one B. I don't know if that, has any significance, but anyway. And but those are somewhat different. Like, for example, I'm just going to gloss over this. I'm not going to explain it too thoroughly, but the tree of life, which is a very, very deep part of Kabbalah. The Hermetic Kabbalah usually includes Da'ath in below Kether, Binah, and Hokmah, and between Geburah and Chesed, which is a hidden Sephirah in the Jewish Kabbalah. So that's the difference. And I believe one of the first, in modern times, the first known Kabbalistic text that we know of is the Sefer Yetzirah, and that is of Jewish Kabbalah. And it also lays out the foundation of things like gematria and such, which you have probably, well, maybe heard of in modern times, used in things like the Book of Revelation, on the number of the beast, 666. How modern scholars have used gematria to say that maybe the 666 means or translates to the Emperor Nero's name, and how he used required that every single piece of money used within Rome had to resemble his face or had to have his face on it, and that would, be the mark of the beast, and such as, whatever. And the 616 in the Latin text of the Bible, and that would by Latin gematria be Nero, and so on.